Angela.
Hi.
Good to see you.
It's great to be here.
It somehow took us getting to Nashville at Vive to have a proper catch-up.
Absolutely.
We'll have to do better
Yes,
across
we
2023. Longtime friend and colleague, excited to chat with you about all the things that are going on. Maybe we'll just start with, I got to know you probably 5 years ago when you were serving in a health system role.
Yes.
You've since transitioned to AWS and are now working on impacting healthcare from outside the four walls of a provider. So talk to me about how you're thinking about that.
Sure. So one of the things as an end user of technology my entire career was I learned the importance of what technology can do. And nothing underscored it more than during COVID. So I will tell you, in a weekend, in my previous role, we spun up a dashboard that was used throughout the entire time for COVID, and that's when I said, technology is what's going to help us get to the next step in how we deliver care.
I remember those days. You were running the operations or control center and trying to figure out how all that would work. So
yes, co-incident commander, yes.
Yes. All right, so you've talked about the role of technology when you were in the throes of working on care delivery. Mm-hmm. As I was walking the Vive space, almost every part of that floor is covered by technology and the promise of AI and really the potential there. What is your perspective as you think about it? What's the potential of cloud-enabled care at scale in your mind?
Sure, no, that's a great question. So at AWS, we do see that AI and ML is one of the most transformative technologies that's out there, and especially when you look at the fact that across healthcare, the digitization's been happening for the last decade. So now it's about how do you take this technology, iterate, build on it, and continue to use it to help inform how care is delivered. So one of the things at AWS that we're looking at is how will we help our customers integrate that technology and be part of the solutions that they need for the future. So, for instance, AI and ML can be very transformative when it comes to reducing redundancy in processes and rules. It can help them decrease cumbersome tasks. And it can also be very helpful to redeploy resources to where they're really needed, which is to direct patient care and more helping the workforce have greater opportunities to really have more of a seamless workflow.
Yeah. I love that. It's both the provider and patient experience lens and figuring out a way to make work more efficient, reduce redundancy, as you've said. As I've spent time with our members across the academy, the other big place that people really want help is around workforce and reducing maybe the demand on the workforce. Sometimes it's called AI and human dyad models of care. Just wondering how you think of that potential and how AWS is really thinking about capturing that.
Sure. So if you think about AI/ML and how it can help the workforce, a big part of it is, in part of this kind of ecosystem of healthcare, there's a lot of rules and regulations, mm-hmm. right? Interoperability is a big part of that. So how do you use this technology to help decrease the burden that comes from the regulatory component and then helps the workforce be able to do their job a little bit easier? So you're going to see AWS working with customers to help with, really bringing all those disparate data points together so that they can see it in one place. And that might be working with a service like AWS HealthLake. Amazon HealthLake is a service that's been purpose-built to help our customers be able to take disparate data points, bring them together, and then get the insights that they need from all of that data.
Yeah, I love that. We just did, at the Health Management Academy, a survey of digital and IT executives around how should they be thinking, what are they thinking about in terms of their major priorities in terms of their sort of IT. And the two that just echo with what you said is all of this around clinical automation, tracking, understanding real time where I am, mm-hmm. and then just the stuff that's not as sexy but really important, cyber, and just the overall business continuity. So it feels like there's alignment between what we're hearing from our members and what's on your roadmap and prioritization at AWS.
Absolutely. And one of the things we're seeing with customers is security is very important to them. It's a top priority for us, and there's some automation that can come to help them with security and help them with compliance audits. And then in turn, they also have options as well with disaster recovery. So that can be very helpful too.
I think that's I think most systems would say that they don't yet have enough redundancy in that sort of business continuity perspective and are really looking for help in that domain for sure.
Absolutely, and we have that for them.
So we've talked a lot about the potential here, but one of the things that comes up in a lot of my conversations with our members is just the huge demand for AI, automation, and its impact on clinical care. So how does AWS think about that?
So the way AWS thinks about it is in our breadth and depth of services. And one of them is Amazon Health Lake, which gives organizations the opportunity to bring all their disparate data together, like from the EHR, from payer data from outside the system, and bringing it together so that there's one view of the patient medical record. And in Amazon Health Lake, which is a purpose-built service just to do this, when you can see all your data in one place, and it allows you to have insights so that you can go in a different direction, so that you can help change the way patient care is delivered, so that you can make the workflow seamless for providers.
So you were on the main stage, I was here preparing, and I got a flurry of emails and text messages related to an announcement that our organization just made, launching a AWS Technology Fellowship. So, very excited.
Yes.
Tell us, why don't you give some context around what it is and how you're thinking about the right folks that can be served through this fellowship program.
Sure. So the Academy AWS Technology Fellows Program is about bringing high potential technology leaders together and really helping them with leadership skills, business, technical, healthcare knowledge so they can lead their organizations into the future. And they're also going to have access to Amazon's leadership principles, our experts, our unique platform expertise to really help them with how do they think about technology and how do they use it. Again, it's going to be all about the workforce. It's going to be all about patients, making it easier in the future.
It's brilliant. I'm reflecting as I spend time with these groups across the year. We do about 65 live events a year, often organized by constituent. Mm-hmm. There's such a hunger for both the technical acumen of what does it mean to be a technology leader in today's times, but then also just the business acumen, the how do I make a case for something, the how do I think about sort of developing competencies around me. So our hope, one of our goals in really partnering with AWS was around seeding the next bench of CIOs and other senior executives. And so we are really excited and deeply appreciative of the partnership. How do you think you'll evaluate success here in a couple of years?
I think there's a couple of different ways. So at AWS, it's all about being focused on the customer, and we're customer obsessed. And we're hearing from customers, health systems around the country, that they want their leaders to have this expertise. So that's one way we're looking at it. The next way we're looking at it is how do we help these high potential technology leaders be the executives they want to be in the future and lead the technology transformation that's happening. So that's another part, like really helping them understand that builder culture that we have at AWS. And then the last part I would say is being part of the fellowship means that these are relationships that are going to last forever, both amongst the fellows and with AWS as well.
Absolutely. I like the other approach here is around really grounding in both clinical, technical acumen as well as just sort of standard technical acumen, and this notion that it really will take the blending of clinical and more traditional IT skill sets to really unlock the potential here, and it sounds like you'd agree with that statement.
Absolutely. Absolutely, I do.
So you mentioned AWS is customer obsessed, and one of the things is we were chatting with our members about the potential for us to do this because we wanted to make sure that it was aligned with just our own goals and strategies as well. They loved that because they are too on this revolution to be much more tapped into their customers, their patients, and so just maybe elaborate on that. Like, how do you think that some of that day one customer obsessed mentality that we all know from Amazon and AWS, like how do you think that translates into some of this programming?
I think there's a couple different things that are happening in healthcare right now. One is it's a complete time of transformation. We have every single stakeholder saying they'd like to see care delivered in a different way, and now it's time to truly reimagine it. So in past roles that I've had, it's been a focus on a particular initiative, like one at a time. Yeah. Today I'm going to talk about providers, maybe tomorrow about patients, then patient engagement. Now you really have to be able to do it all at one time, and you have to be able to do it at scale, and you have to be able to do it faster. So now it's no longer enough just to say, I know what the patient journey is. Now you have to understand the patient journey, understand how the workforce will take part in it, and you have to anticipate what's next. And being able to do that is going to be dependent on having technology as part of the equation.
Absolutely. You said something a moment ago that I want to go back to, that one of the principles at AWS is around this builder culture. Just say more about that. Like, what have you noted after you've gotten out of the provider lane, like what does it mean to be a builder in the context that maybe a large technology-driven company would think about?
I mean, for AWS, what that means is like we're looking at our very broad platform of services that we have in the cloud and the way that we can architect those together to solve any problem. And the way we do that is we're working backwards from the customer or what the problem is. And there's a lot that healthcare can learn from thinking, what is the problem? Who is the key stakeholder or the customer in it? And then what is it I'm looking to solve? And then how do I do it? And that's a big part of what we do at AWS when we're thinking about technology. It's about how do we take the breadth and depth of services that we have and bring them together into the solution that's needed at the moment.
Yeah. And are you, do you have observations, just given how slowly providers typically move based upon your 20 years of work experience before landing here? Do you feel like that there's maybe some greater urgency now than there was a few years back? Like, how are you seeing readiness play out from the provider landscape on this front?
I mean, I think the good news is that COVID was a big, proof of concept, right? In healthcare, every organization moved very quickly.
Yeah,
what they did in the morning was different than what they did at night. And then after these last several years, they're seeing they must move quickly. And I think that is what is driving kind of this new approach to how we're going to how healthcare will use technology and how we will support them with customer obsession, builder thinking, day one thinking.
Yeah, I love that. When I chat with our members, they talk a lot about that wanting to be a remnant, right, in terms of just exceeding your own expectations at the pace of change and how quickly that you can move, laying or trying to remove levels of bureaucracy and decision-making to get to things faster. And so I know as I've talked to some of our members who are engaged in this program, they're really excited for the principles to come through as much as the technical acumen. And so I'm really excited to see what happens there.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of healthcare customers really enjoy learning more about Amazon's leadership principles and day one thinking. And so we're excited to share that with them as well.
Yeah. So I want to go back a little bit into your role as a fellow. So you engaged, the way that we got to know you, or at least the way that I got to know you, was you were in another one of our fellowship programs, and for physician leaders, up and coming physician leaders. And so maybe just reflect on that experience, and in my mind, what I think is so notable about it is you're taking people who are already very accomplished in their career and giving them an accelerator in some ways. And so how did the power of meeting with your peers and really creating these learning environments, how has that helped you as you've gone along?
No, that's a really great question. So the fellowship was really transformational for me in that I had a group of really high-achieving folks in my cohort. And so that was one connection that I had. But then I had the executives and residents. And then I had, of course, the investment that the health system had made in me as an individual. So what it did was it allowed me to hone my leadership skills, have more insight into how I was going to help change the way care was delivered at the time. And it also helped me have bonds with other like-minded professionals that have lasted to this day.
Absolutely. I'm struck by that. We just graduated a class of finance fellows, maybe my days are blending in here, last Thursday. And I did the graduation talk, and I reflected that we've now had more than 300 fellows graduate, 85% promotion rate. We've got 3 sitting CEOs that came through a fellowship program. And so my thought for this IT-oriented, this technology, AWS Technology Fellowship, is what can we create that when we look back in the rearview mirror, we see the next generation of folks leading the organization that really has this really in their DNA and culture.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So maybe one final question for you, actually 2. One would be, while we like the learning and the peer networking and the chance to step away from your day-to-day work to really figure out, then learn new skills. The other piece that we really want to push on is the action orientation. So there is typically a action project that is both, people love it, and it also, I'm impressed that people have the time to do it. So talk about why that's important and how you thought about that in your own fellowship experience.
Sure. I think it's really important for fellows to have a strategic action project, one that allows them to have impact across their system. So either it's going to be from a business standpoint, finance, It's going to be from the standpoint of clinical care, where they're making a true impact to the system. It's going to be a lasting impact, and one in which will lead to change, lower the cost, or change the way they're delivering delivering care in a particular department. So it's a meaningful project. It truly is.
Meaningful is right. And I'm always struck with at our events where we actually have the fellows bring their projects to life, and they engage with the small table around it, and they have such pride in it.
Yes.
And it's just been a really nice way to really think through seeding ideas that really do have the potential to really swing performance in the provider system. So it's been great to see that.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember my project, it was around sepsis at the time. That was a big focus, not only because it was so incredibly important for patients and their outcomes, but there was a financial component to it. There was also a regulatory component.
That's right.
And so it really helped galvanize how we thought about sepsis and treating it.
Absolutely. And then the exposure that I think it gets folks in their systems, right?
Yes.
Like as part of preparing for it, they're often presenting to folks that are several levels above them in terms of scope and of control. And so I think it's this exposure and really feeling invested, which as we think through all the workforce challenges right now, just how key that is to really retain important, crucial talent.
Absolutely.
All right. So if anyone wanted to learn more about this, where would they go to find out information?
So if they want to learn more, they should go to hmacademy.com. There they can learn more about the fellowship program.
Perfect. And then I have one final question, not at all related to the fellowship per se, but I ask this question on every podcast that I host, which is the inspiration for the table is I really believe the power of conversation to move things forward. And if you get the right people around it and you curate it, you walk away with insight and thoughts and maybe a new way of thinking.
Right.
So if you had the ability to curate your own table, who would you invite and why?
Okay. So first would be Prince.
Oh, okay.
One of my
a little
favorite,
Purple Rain?
yes, favorite performers of all time. It's March Madness. He was a crazy basketball fan.
Was he? I didn't know that.
He was a
Okay.
huge basketball fan. So it'd be fascinating to talk to him about what's happened this year in
The
March
upsets,
Madness.
that there are no number one seeds left in the tournament.
Absolutely. And also the other thing is, too, like his music catalog is phenomenal, right? And the way he used technology in his music would be great to have that conversation with him. And I'll tell you the other person, the other person would be Gary Bisbee, who is somebody that you and I both care deeply about.
Co-founder of the Health Management Academy.
Absolutely, who recently passed away. I mean, Gary was one of these people who would be so incredibly happy about this technology fellowship program happening. He was always curious about what the future of healthcare was going to entail. And I think as the conversation continued, as the party continued with you, me, Prince, and Gary, I mean, at some point he turned the table and started doing, some kind of fireside chat or interview, because he was a master at doing that as well. But I just think there's so much opportunity in healthcare to learn from other industries. And that's why I would love to have the four sitting around the table.
Sounds like I got an invite to that dinner.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. That's great. Gary also was a opera singer. I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't
know that. He was
know
a trained
that.
opera singer, so maybe Prince could be on the guitar.
Would have loved that.
Yes, and Gary
would
could
have
do his
loved
thing.
that.
Yes. Well, wonderful. It's always so nice to connect with you. We're really excited about the partnership, and hopefully we can come back this time next year and give an update on what we've got going on.
Absolutely. So great to see you.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.